first thing I did was started on the yarn wig. So I started with a wig cap and just sewed up the back of it to give myself a nice base. First thing I did, which was a misstep, was I used this chenille home yarn because I thought that it would be the right thickness. It was a disaster to work with, but as you can see, I got really far into the process before I figured out that it wasn't going to work. I think I basically gaslit myself into thinking that it would somehow work out, but the thing is that the chenille yarn, it's like a thread in the middle, and then there's like the puffy yarn material on the outside. I don't really know how to explain it. It's not a strong yarn. If you sew it down, it will really easily just fall out of the wig. So it was not at all the right thing to use. But as you can see, like I said, I got really far into the process before I decided to just not do any more. This is what I'm talking about. When you just pull on it, it just breaks off. So don't ever use the chenille yarn for this. Only use that for knitting. Nothing else. But I did eventually upgrade to this just regular yarn, and I started the whole process again. So here I am with the wig cap. I put some elastics in like an X on the top to give myself a nice base. And then I measured, not actually measured, but eyeballed, as you can see, how long the yarn had to be in the back, and then cut a whole bunch of pieces out from there. Then I sewed them all one by one onto this piece of elastic, which would go in the back of the wig between the intersections of the X elastics that I put on there. And here I am hand sewing them on. So I'm starting with that side elastic and then making it go towards the back and then towards the other side. So it has 3 anchor points to keep in place. And then I measured 1 inch up from there to do the next layer. So here I am repeating that same process, cutting out all the pieces of yarn and then adding another row of elastic with the yarn in it to those same intersections. And then I just kept doing that. Add some bangs the same way. And then I went back to the rest of the wig and just kept repeating the same process over and over, just adding more rows of hair onto the intersections. And you basically just keep repeating that same process however many times you need it. It gets a little bit more tricky to figure out how to lay the hair once you get towards the crown of the wig. And then for the final layer that sits across the top of the head, I did these super long pieces of yarn and then sewed them in the middle onto an elastic, and then that just sits right on top there. Sewed that in, and that was it for the wig. So I made it too small, but I think for my first time doing a yarn wig, it was totally acceptable for my first ever try. Okay, now we're working on the dress. This is the pattern that I'm using, and all I did was I just lengthened the skirt a little bit. Then I also had to sub out the sleeves for puffy sleeves, so I cut these out and then just lengthen them a little bit because hers are puffy, but they're longer sleeves than what this pattern gives you. Sewed everything together, pressed my seams as usual, and I would later zigzag them. I don't have footage of that, but I did make sure to zigzag my seams, very important. Then I worked on all of the different patches on her dress. So I have this blue fabric that has a little bit of a texture to it because I wanted to add some texture to her design. And I basically just made a whole bunch of squares, sewed them together, ironed them, and then top stitched them all, and then just sewed those to the dress. So I'm working on the bodice here. I would later work on the skirt. And then what I did, which was my second mistake on this cosplay, was I kind of embroidered the stitching by basically doing these long stitches back and forth over the edges of the patches. And you can see here it looks terrible, but I thought that it was just kind of a trust the process moment, which looking back, it clearly was not. I thought maybe in the grand scheme of things it would look okay. It looks like garbage, and we'll get back to that later because I did later have to fix it. Anyway, here I am gathering my sleeves, and then I add some white ruffles to the ends of the sleeves, sewed those onto the dress, and then got to work on the skirt. So basically repeating the same process as on the bodice. So, pressing my seams later I would finish my edges. I again don't seem to have any footage of that, but I promised that I did it. Then I laid out the skirt and placed all the patches on so that they would be canon to her design. I did actually follow the reference. I didn't just do like random patches. I made sure to try and make it as faithful to her design as possible. Sewed them all on and did the same like back and forth stitching all over it, which again looked really bad. What I later had to do, and I don't have footage of this, but I had to go in and seam rip all of the stitching that I had done, which was definitely a challenge, but I did manage to do it in the end. And then instead I took some black pieces of pleather and sewed those on as my stitches, which is what I'm doing here. And it looks so much better. So happy about that. Here I am sewing the skirt to the bodice. Still haven't finished my seams for some reason, but I promise I do it eventually. Making the waistband. So I made a huge band, turned it inside out, pressed it, top stitched it, and then added the patches to it, adding my stitching, and then sewed that to the dress. I had to pattern out a collar because this pattern does have a Peter Pan collar, but I've lost a part of it and I have no idea where it went. So I just had to pattern one out from scratch, sew that to the neckline of the dress, then added some nice lace. I love adding lace to cosplays. It's like one of my favorite things. Added a zipper and then worked on the bow. So here I am adding some interfacing to the bow to give it some structure. Cut that all out, sewed it together, turned it inside out, and then sewed it up. And I did press it as well. I just don't have footage of it. And then I just sewed it down in the middle and added a band around there. Sewed that directly into the wig. A lot of people asked how I did the eye. I don't have footage of myself making it for some reason, but basically what I did is I just took a giant button, add some string to the middle, and then just attached this invisible, I don't know what you actually call it. It's what you use for like invisible straps on a dress. So it's like this transparent looking band. So I just attached that to the button, and then I just wear it like an eye patch, basically. So anyway, that's it for the construction of the cosplay. Here I am trying it on for the very first time, very happy with it. I don't feel confident in a lot of my cosplays these days, but this one I felt absolutely adorable. I think the dress is really flattering and it just is really comfy to wear. So I'm really, really happy with it. I think Ragatha, after the second episode, might have become my favorite in Digital Circus. Sorry, Pomni, but I do really love Ragatha, so I'm excited to eventually wear this cosplay to a convention. I did have my friend Max wear it. They cosplayed Ragatha when I was cosplaying Pomni, and we took some cute photos together, and it was really great. So anyway, that is a little look at how I made my Ragatha cosplay. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys all in the next one, but until then, Panda Faces, please be sure to take care. Bye!